Christian with the Essential Faith Project. We're doing a series of podcasts on the essentials of spiritual health. These are the basic things. They've been called over the years habits of a disciple or spiritual disciplines. We call them essentials because they really are essential if you want to be a healthy disciple of Jesus. So with all of the talk that we have in the churches today about discipleship, it's become almost a fad. And it's important that we understand that the scriptures give us a very clear picture of what it is to be a healthy disciple. One of those things is relationships with other Christians. Now, I want to make very, very clear that I'm talking in this section about relationships with Christians, not relationships in general. Jesus made it obvious by his own example that his relationships were not just with those who followed him or those who were seeking to be faithful to God, but with those that were known as sinners, with prostitutes, with drunks, with extortionists, people who were collaborators with the Romans. Jesus spent time with everybody, but at the core, he kept coming back to those who would pray with him, who studied with him, and in his case, those who were his followers. What we need to do is make sure that not only do we have those relationships with the people in the world, we need those. We can't do our mission without those, as we're going to see in subsequent podcasts. But we also have to make sure that our relationship with others within the body of Christ is strong. So here's what I want you to do. As we talk about this, I want you to think about who in your life is of a similar spiritual maturity or maybe even stronger, and who is close enough to you, who you can call day or night if you need someone to pray with, if you need someone to pray for you, if you need to be able to confess a sin or confess that you're struggling or even doubting and ask somebody to stand with you and pray with you. Who can you call? Who do you talk to? Now, I want you to literally make a list. Put those things down on paper, on a whiteboard, make a list and look at the names that you've got. And then ask yourself this question. Who do you, not just who can you, but who do you talk to this way? And if there's somebody that you can, but you're not, then for the moment, draw a line through that person because they're not true relationships. They're potential relationships. Now, here's the thing that you need to understand. We have to have this reflexively. We have to be available to others. As somebody in ministry for decades, I can tell you I've been available to literally anybody who would call. People I knew, people who I was very close to, people I had never even heard of. If they've made a phone call, I would pick the phone up, I would be with them, and I would be available to them. But that doesn't mean that I was willing to do the same with them. That was a much smaller group of people whom I had built trust with, people whom I had gotten to know and was willing to risk. Because the more information you give about yourself, the more vulnerable you are. So we need to understand that in our relationships, we first of all, we're going to build these relationships primarily through worship. This is something that the Hebrew writer pointed out in Hebrews 10:25 when he encouraged people to continue to meet together, to gather together, because it was then that they were encouraging one another, spurring one another to love and good deeds. So we're going to meet people and we're going to build relationships by worshiping with them, by serving with them. Sometimes it's going to be as simple as simply saying to people, hey, I need this. Do you have people in your life? And if not, would you be interested in joining with me and being one of those in mine and allowing me to be that for you? Frequently, this is something that's going to come out of being in a small group with somebody. And remember, if you join a small group looking for this, then don't just the first day say, hey, would you do this? You need to build trust in these people and give them the opportunity to build trust in you as well. In my experience, it takes an average of about 6 months to do that, to where you really do have the kind of relationship where it then becomes more natural. And when you say, hey, would it be okay if I called you to just pray with me during the week? It's not going to seem weird or artificial. It's of course. And those are the relationships that we want to build. Now, look at that list, and now, do you have at least 4 or 5 people on that list that you could do this with? If you don't, then I want you to look at those that maybe you drew a line through and ask yourself, if those are people that you could do this, why are you not? You don't have to actually be physically close. This doesn't require that you be in the same room. For many years, some of the people that I have been the closest with spiritually and who have been there for me and been willing to let me make those phone calls and have made them to me are people I'm not even in the same state with. But over the years, we have built these relationships. Maybe they're family, maybe they're old friends, maybe they're people that you were with in a different church at a different time. And those relationships don't have to go away. So if those are people that you can do this with, then renew that relationship. Call them up, talk to them, tell them what you're thinking, because these are people you already have trust with. That's why they're on your list. And ask them, are you willing to be like that with me? Are you willing to have that kind of relationship still? And the odds are very, very good, if they're on that list to begin with, that they're going to be saying yes. Now, let me add one other thing. If you are married, then in most cases, you're going to have your list. Your wife or husband is going to have their list. Now, that's good as far as it goes, because we're talking one-on-one. We're talking about building a personal rapport. There are people that my wife talks to frequently whom I like, and in some cases I love them, but they're not people on my list. And there are people that are on my list that my wife would not consider calling and doing that with in most cases. So it's okay to have different lists. But it's useful as a married couple to also have some people who are couples and whom you could call and talk to as a couple. I'm thinking of one couple, and if you're watching this video, you know who you are, because Donna and I have had a close relationship with them since 1979. And we haven't even lived in the same state since 1982. And yet, if there's something happening in their life, they know they can call us like that. And if there's something happening in our lives, we feel free to call them. Not just for something individually for Donna or for myself, but for us as a couple in our marriage. Now, how do you build those relationships? It's really pretty much the same as building individual ones. It just is a little more difficult because you're dealing with 4 people instead of 2. So build these relationships by meeting people in worship, maybe inviting them over for lunch to just get to know them, being in a small group or a ministry team with them. And as you build over time a rapport with them and build trust, then ask them, would you be open to us sometimes just calling you when we need to, because we know this is important spiritually and we want to be there for you to do this as well. What you might find is not only are they open to it, but that this is something that they would really like in their relationship with the Lord, to have other people that will draw them to the Lord as well. I want to encourage you to not just think about this, but to actually make your list and make this very intentional. In other words, the people that are on your list are people that should know that they're on your list, that you have said this about, that you think this about, and that you are willing and wanting to relate to in this way. Then start doing it. I hope this was useful to you. I want to encourage you to go into the information section on this video on YouTube and click on the link that takes you to Essential Faith Project, and it's specifically going to take you straight to a sign up for the spiritual health assessment. This is a tool that is totally free and totally confidential, and what it does is ask you a number of questions. It takes about 5 minutes to do, and then gives you feedback on where you are with regard to the different essentials in your discipleship. Then it gives you some guidance as to what you can do in order to strengthen that area of your discipleship. It's very, very important to take that from the academic down to the personal. Now, this ministry is 100% donation based. So if you would like to support us, I want to encourage you to go to www.essentialfaithproject.org/donate, and you can make your donation there. In the meantime, I want to encourage you to subscribe and tell your friends, your church leaders, know Jesus and be faithful.